Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. The agenda will be displayed on the screens in the front of the room. You may also follow along by connecting to the district's website, www.wcsoh.org. Just click on the district link, then select Board of Education and Board Docs agenda, and then tonight's meeting if you want to follow along online. There will be two opportunities to address the board tonight, the first being agenda item 7.01. The first set of public comments is relative to agenda items 8.01 through 12.03. Please state the agenda items that you are referencing at the beginning of your comments. And then the second opportunity is agenda item 13.01. There is a sign-up sheet in the back of the room on the table in the back if you'd like to sign up for comments. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board, and a timer will be shown on the screen up front. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll? Oh, we're starting.
Swear, Vaughn.
We're going to swear at Vaughn, yeah.
Our first agenda item, sorry about that, is of course the oath of office for our new board member. And are you going to be doing that, Ms. Marshall? Okay.
Think about it, Vaughn. Think about it.
Solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as a board member for the said Westerville City School District in Franklin and Delaware counties of Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until a successor is chosen and qualified.
I do.
Congratulations.
Welcome. Okay, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Here.
Mr. Velarda?
Here.
Mrs. Davidson?
Here.
Ms. Potter?
Here. And if everyone would like to join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our next agenda item is agenda item 4.01, Parent Council Report and Resolution. I would like to entertain a motion and a second to approve a resolution of commendation for Westerville Parent Council.
So moved.
Second.
Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Velarda?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 4.02 is the recognition of PTA, PTO, and booster groups, which I would like to recognize Mr. Velardo for.
Thank you, President Cotter. We are going to honor some people tonight that do tremendous work across this district. I can tell you from the board's perspective, the administration's perspective, that these highlights and recognitions are not just things that we put in, but we truly value the work that so many people across this district, in the schools and outside the schools, in the community, do to make us what we believe is a stellar school district. So at this time, I am going to go to the podium. I invite those here at the table to come up front, and we're going to shake some hands. So give us just a moment. First, for the Westerville Parent Council, I'm going to invite up their president, Liz Washburn, who is going to introduce the leadership of the council. Then I will read the resolution. So give Liz a hand.
Thank you, members of the board and Dr. Kellogg, just for your continued partnership with parents in this district and the successful work that we do together for the success of students. I would like to recognize my board. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this job, that's for sure. As our first vice president, I have Jeff Johnson. Second Vice President, Elizabeth Firth. Secretary, Molly Woodruff. And Treasurer, Alan Pate.
I'd like to have all of the officers come over here with me while I read the resolution. This is a resolution of commendation for Westerville Parent Council. Whereas Westerville Parent Council, WPC, is a nonprofit 501c3 organization unifying 34 member groups, including PTAs, PTOs, booster, and community groups. And whereas WPC provides an avenue for collaboration, support, and the sharing of district-wide information to help ensure that families are engaged and connected in the Westerville schools. And whereas during the 2017-2018 school year, volunteers in WPC member groups provided 66,118 hours. 66,118 hours of donated time and talent in such areas as band, theater, athletic support, literacy initiatives, student leadership development, tutoring, mentoring, and clubs. And whereas monetary contributions provided by member groups collectively totaled $858,094.35. $858,094.35 in the form of programs, projects, and activities to support the well-being of pupils. And whereas WPC member groups also aided graduating seniors from all three high schools with scholarships worth $44,000. Therefore, be it resolved that the Westerville City Schools Board of Education and Superintendent express their sincere gratitude to all of our remarkable volunteers for their generous time, talent, and continuing legacy of enhancing the educational and extracurricular experience for students in this district, November 19, 2018. You can understand why we wanted to honor the leadership and all of you for doing this, and they all deserve a hand.
And now if a representative, as I call your group, if you would come up and receive your recognition for your group. Would a representative from the Special Needs Preschool PTA, Alcott Elementary PTA, Amherst Elementary PTA, Charrington Elementary PTA, Emerson Elementary PTA, Faust Elementary PTO, Hanby Elementary PTA, Hawthorne Elementary PTO, Huber Ridge Elementary PTA, Mark Twain Elementary PTA, McVeigh Elementary PTA, Point View Elementary PTA. Robert Frost Elementary PTA. Whittier Elementary PTA. Wilder Elementary PTA. Blendon Middle School PTO. Genoa Middle School PTSA. Heritage Middle School PTSA. Walnut Springs Middle School PTSA. Central Academic Boosters. Central Athletic Boosters. Central Music Boosters. Central Theater Boosters. North Academic Boosters. North Athletic Boosters. North Music Boosters. North Theater Boosters. South Academic Boosters. South Athletic Boosters. South Music Boosters. South Theater Boosters. Westerville City Schools IB Fund. Westerville African American Parent Association. And Westerville Partners for Education.
Thank you so much. Oh, thanks, Wayne. Westerville. IB. IB. Oh, thank you. There you are. Thank you so much.
Please really give them one more round of applause. And at this time, for all of you did you get the right one this time? All right. I offered to take a Sharpie. You know. Thank you, Nancy. At this time, all of you that have received this award and so on, you are welcome to go out, and I think there's going to be some photographs out there, right? Take some pictures of everybody. What? Follow him right there. And then if you'd like to come back and sit in through the rest of the meeting, nobody ever does that. Thank you all. That was stressful? Oh. She was cranking them. Yeah. She was cranking them.
Just do like generic resolutions when we do so many.
Fill in your school's name.
No, not fill in the school's name, but thank you. We
could give them a Sharpie with
Board
it.
of Education for your work to this.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
It's kind of neat for them to have the individual.
Yes. Efficiency doesn't.
It takes some time.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5.01, approving the minutes of the October 22nd, 2018 Board of Education meeting and the executive session minutes of the Board of Education meeting held on November 5th and November 9th, and the special meeting held on November 13th as read. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the minutes? We don't actually vote on them, but do board members have questions or comments? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6.01, middle school report. I think we have Mr. Reeves coming up to talk to us about that.
Thank you, President Cotter, Dr. Kellogg, members of the board. Brought a team with me that I would like to give an update and share the work of the middle school design team that we have put together. And if you recall, we are in year 2 of the work of our middle school design team, and I have members of our leadership team with me, behind me, and Baldwin, Marcia, Childs, Tammy Santa and Jennifer Knapp are going to also share a little bit about their work. But this is our second year, and why did we put this team together? And of course, we know that over the course of several years, through the ebbs and flows of the health financially of our district, probably disproportionately a little bit, I think the middle school programming was thinned beyond what I think we are comfortable with and the experiences that we want for our students to have. And so addressing the middle school and addressing the programming and all of that, last year we put together a middle school design team that was a mix of district leaders and administrators and teachers from all 4 of our middle schools to come together to see what we could put together in terms of a really good experience for our middle school students. So in doing that, is it on? That would help. Is there a light? Right. A middle school student could do it. Man. How many people does it take? Obviously more than me. So starting with the end in mind, when the group first started to get together, we started to think of why are we here and what is it that we are trying to accomplish. And one of the things that we did accomplish last year is developing our AIM statement. It sounds very high level, but I think it is the centerpiece of all the work that we do. And our AIM statement that we are hoping to achieve is that every Westerville City Middle School student is actively engaged in a dynamic learning experiences and environments that help learning and life skills for academic and personal success. And a lot of that was put together by getting feedback from our staff, from our students, from our parents about what they wanted. Because we know here is our current condition of our middle schools that we think that we can improve upon. First of all, we know that 6th grade is I don't know that I'd say a trouble spot, but a spot that I think we really want to focus on. And why is that? Because we know that on average, our 6th graders are coming into our middle school, and we combine anywhere from 3 to 4 elementary schools into our middle schools. Well, that means that the 6th graders coming in, they don't know 3 out of every 4 of the students. Some of their best friends are at another middle school. So in combining that, you've got 6th graders who are coming into a new building. They don't have many of their friends, so they're new students. There are new adults, and a lot of the adults from their elementary school that they had deep relationships with are now gone, and so they are building those again. They have limited access to extracurricular programs because in the state of Ohio, you cannot start extracurricular sports at least until 7th grade. They can participate in clubs and things. So 6th grade is a year that we really want to focus on because we have found both in the rise in discipline numbers from grades 5 to 6 and the anxiety that we see and the value added that's presented on our report card, we know that that's a place we want to give attention to. Limited elective choices for our students, that's something that we've heard and we knew. And then that our students and our families and our teachers would like more choices for all of our middle school students to explore in the various programming that we have to offer. Our current system gives limited cross-collaboration for teachers. Our teachers are very siloed. In fact, they look a lot like many high schools. And teachers don't get a chance to get together to talk about students and about their programming and about their instructional practices to the degree that should happen at the middle school level. There's limited access for cross-curricular activities because our teachers aren't together in groups. And so having a student that's in trouble, there's not a group of teachers who are available to talk about this is what's working with this student, and let's learn more about this student, and let's learn more about this student's family. And we also know that content doesn't happen in silos. You don't just learn math at this point of the day, and then you read in this point of the day, and then you learn. And so we don't have opportunities currently in our middle school programming to blend a lot of the cross-curricular opportunities for those dynamic learning experiences. And then we also had to, as we have thinned our courses, in lean financial times, we've had to reduce and go down to a 7-period day. What that 7-period day then causes us is when students have their 4 core classes and then lunch, that leaves them 2 periods for electives. And we don't have a lot of choices. And if you're a student that's not in one of the musical courses, band, choir, or orchestra, you have even less choices. If you are a student who is identified as special education, or you are an EL student, then a lot of times one of those periods are utilized to get your services, whether your English acquisition services or services granted to you by your IEP. So that even further reduces the opportunity to take part in the electives that we do have. And then because of our limited periods, we have incredibly large study halls that are housed in our media centers and are housed in our commons and our lunchrooms, and they're not very conducive to studying or doing anything like that at all. And so those are a lot of the hurdles that we've been addressing for the last several years to provide those dynamic experiences. And so at this point, I will turn it over, and we will talk about some of the work that we did in the first year to Jennifer Knapp.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome, Mr. Bell. Congratulations. It's nice to see you. The middle school design team, as Scott mentioned, is comprised of teachers, counselors, building administrators, and central office administrators. And as we worked to develop this team, the building administrators were very cognizant of making sure that every group was represented. So we didn't have a whole bunch of math teachers or a whole bunch of science teachers, but we really had a good representation across the board. And as far as I know, I was trying to double check with the team. I believe everyone returned from last year to this year. Okay. Which 40-some members. 47? Oh, 40-some. Okay. I wanted to quote him correctly, but he did say 40-some. Okay. One person we did add a music person. We had representation from fine arts last year, visual and performing arts, and we felt that we needed to add a person in that regard, and we also added an administrator for our gifted department, feeling that better rounded out year two. So we kept everyone and added a few to have a more full contribution. We focused on appreciative inquiry, and we visited each middle school during the first year. During these visits, we came to understand what was currently working. It was really important for us and every team member to understand the different buildings. I think we're a little spoiled sometimes because we get to see every middle school, but this was a great opportunity for our teachers and for building administrators to go in and spend a day in the life of a teacher, in the life of a student, and really understand. So we had focus groups for students, we had student interviews, and we had parent focus groups as well to really understand, what it was that they were desiring from their middle school experience. We also did a bit of external site visits toward the end of the year to see what other districts were doing around the state of Ohio that were working for them. And now I will turn it over to Anne.
So as a result of all of those visits, we had a lot of notes and data to go through as a team. And as we sifted through that, several themes began to emerge. And we developed this driver diagram to help really ground our work as we move forward in year two and beyond. Our outcome is always at the top so that we remain focused on what we want to accomplish. And we found that we have 3 action priorities to work on to meet that goal. One around organization structure, another around curriculum and instruction, and a third around social emotional learning. We have 6 design principles that keep us focused in our work, and we really try to, again, highlight and strengthen our strengths, because what we found in our research, we have a lot of strengths within our buildings. And there's an opportunity to strengthen those and grow them, but then there's also an opportunity to build and rebalance and adjust and fill in some gaps through our work. So we're on to year 2 this year, and we have formed action teams. So our large design team is split up into 3 different action teams to research and develop those priority areas. Our goals this year is to prepare and implement at least 1 recommendation in each of those priority areas. We're starting small, and we want to accomplish something and then build on that work. And then our goal is also to build capacity to pilot these recommendations in all 4 of our middle schools as soon as next year. So within each of those action teams, we have made sure that they're There's representation from each middle school building, and each team is co-chaired by an administrator and an instructional staff person, so that we have all voices at the table as we're planning agendas and moving the work forward. So we're going to tell you a little bit about what each action team is working to accomplish this year.
Thank you. And just to share a little bit as well about the construct of our middle school design team, we reached out and partnered with Battelle for Kids, and Denise Snowden and Steve Fuji have been great in helping us, and we wanted to make sure that we had representation and voices at all pieces. It was very important for us to have the staff well represented, and WEA President Rhonda Gilpin is a very active member of our team, as is Dr. Nancy Nestor Baker, who has been there kind of guiding us and informing us and asking those critical questions that we want to make sure that we always entertain. So the organizational structure, that's the group that I co-chair with teacher Katie Sculp from Heritage Middle School. And when we're looking at our priorities that we were clearly given, not only from the research and the reading that we've done, but from the feedback that we got from all 4 middle schools, from our parents and from our staff and our students, one of the things in our highest priority that we're looking at a variety of teaming models. And that is something that in various formats we had once in our district, and we're looking at, within the resources that we have, what kind of teaming models could we put together. And why are we looking at teaming models? Number one, as we said, as kids come out of elementary school into middle school, they come from a very smaller learning community where you have less touches but deeper touches with fewer adults within that smaller school setting, and you go to a strange environment with new adults and you don't really spend the time with them to have those type of great and deep connections, to have those learning experiences. So we are looking at those teaming models because it creates those smaller learning communities. It creates better stronger relationships, student to student, adult to student, adult to adult. And we've been researching and looking at other models, both in Central Ohio and outside of Central Ohio, and trying to see what best fits our character and our community and the things that we want to do in our school. So that is our highest priority. And then once
Scott?
we get a sense of...
Hey, Scott.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Not everybody might know what you mean by teaming.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind, for audience and all board members.
Sure.
That might
So
be.
when you look at teaming, it's basically, in its most basic structure, let's say you have a 6th grade team, and you potentially have 1 math teacher, 1 science teacher, 1 social studies teacher, and 1 English teacher. And those 4 teachers may share the same group of kids, and the same group of kids will rotate among those 4, sometimes 5 teachers. And those teachers, not only do they have the opportunity to meet together individually and plan their work, they also have opportunities to meet as a team. And they talk about their instruction, and they talk about the team, they talk about the students on their team, the ones that are excelling, the ones that need some extra support, some extra touches. It's easier to have parent communication. It's very difficult for a student to perhaps fall through the cracks because they are being discussed and nurtured and taken care of by their team. It also lends the opportunity for cross-curricular work, which are those dynamic educational experiences that we're looking to have, whether it's a joint unit with an English and a social studies, or math and science, doing some kind of project-based or engaging work together with those students. And so it really creates a smaller learning community for both the kids and the teachers, and it just really strengthens those connections. And then based upon what model we are able to decide on and recommend and move forward with, and the work that the other action teams are doing, then instead of saying, here's our schedule, let's fit within the schedule, it's here's the work that we want to do. What type of schedule best fits the work that we want to do? We're not looking at changing the start and stop time. That will be static for next year. We're going to start and stop the next on time the next year. But within that bell schedule, we want to create greater flexibility for teachers and students to do those dynamic learning experiences for our kids. And so that's what we're working on in our organization and structure action team.
So Scott, really quick, did
Yes.
you talk about the hours of the day and extending those?
There's a lot of moving parts with that in our organization, especially at the middle level, because the middle level is drop off high school, go get
Sure.
middle level students, drop off middle level students,
Sure.
then go get the elementary students. And so, no pun intended, but buses drive the bell schedule. So There's whatever flexibility that we have within transportation, being able to safely and on time get students to and from the levels around them, we'll maximize to the highest degree that we can, but we're probably about where we're going to be, which is very similar to a lot of districts we have found, the length of our school day.
So that falls into within the resources that we have.
Correct.
Got it.
So, can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
So then are you looking at maybe lunchtime changes or silent reading changes?
I would say everything's on the table at this point, and we are looking at maximizing the opportunity that students have with teachers in the classroom. And to be honest, the sustained silent reading and the work that we are doing at the lunchtime now was a function of we had to change our schedule, and we had young people sitting in a lunchroom for about 50, 55 minutes, most of whom were finished eating in about 15. And so when you had those days when they couldn't go outside, it became probably the environment we didn't care to have. And so we worked on how can we provide an opportunity to do some things with those kids. So we would rather have those opportunities in the classroom with the team of teachers. But everything at this point is on the table. All right.
The next is curriculum and instruction. And our initial priorities, as previously stated, we don't have a whole lot of elective offerings in middle school. And, our aim is dynamic learning experiences to engage students. And a lot of the feedback, when we asked our students, if you could create any course, what would it be? And they had quite a few interesting comments, let me tell you. But really trying to hone in on, what they would like to see, and to better meet their needs and to meet the needs of our teachers. So really, we are in the exploratory phase. I mean, I can't stress the exploratory phase enough at this point. We met on Educator Day. All of the groups met, all the action teams met on Educator Day, and we formed kind of little study groups from our CNI, focused really on the pathways that we have at our high schools, maybe looking at what could we do to help connect the dots 6-12, as well as looking at ways to complement and support our current elective offerings. So I'm meeting with the PE, music, and art teachers next week to say, okay, here's, we're starting with them. So number one, what is it that you see that's working for you, that maybe not be working for you? So know that even though we don't have all of the visual and performing arts as members of this team, that team, those teachers will be leading the discussion as to what their courses may look like in the future if they choose, in fact, to look differently than they do now. The second, do we have any questions on that one before I move to the second one? Okay. The second is in May, the team identified interdisciplinary project-based curriculum, which is a heavy lift. Which ties again, as Scott said, into teaming. So if you have a person from each, core content area on one team, then they would have an opportunity to do some cross-disciplinary work. So the goal of our team this year is to read and to become, to have a firm understanding of what that means. Interdisciplinary project-based. You hear project-based, you hear problem-based. It's called a lot of different things, but what does that actually mean before we go any further with working on any sort of implementation of that idea? No questions? Oh, whoa. Moving on.
All right, so the last kind of segment, middle school design, I help co-chair with Ann Baldwin, and Marcia Childs is our educator guru with us. And so you'll see on here, these are our initial priorities, really looking at 5-6 transition, kind of piggybacks on what Scott said about 6th grade. Looking at best practice models, looking at what we're already doing well, areas where we can improve, so we can have a really thorough and thoughtful recommendation for next school year. Going into maybe a bigger part of this is defining SEL and social emotional learning. And so as we've navigated this process, really interesting to talk to people about what do they think social emotional learning is, and to hear quickly it's major mental health. And so for us to kind of bring that back to more of a broad process of social emotional learning being, what do we all do? Like, how can we all contribute to this? Is huge for us. We don't want it to be this add-on, a program, something extra. And so for our group to really go after a definition and understanding, a process of SEL, and then how does each person in our district have a really critical role in social emotional learning for our students. And then lastly, just developing really thoughtful professional learning opportunities as it relates to SEL. So we've built on that already, but now we really want to look at targeted gaps, high-level hotspots, whatever it may be, so that we can then prepare and align helpful opportunities for our staff. Any questions? That's all we have. Anything in general for the whole team?
Anyone have questions or comments?
I do have one thing to add. Sincerest apologies. I was so waiting for questions that I forgot to introduce, because he's sitting in the back, Scott Delgatti, who is my co-chair, one of my co-chairs, and Kim Mason. He is from Genoa, and Kim Mason from Walnut. So, Scott, my apologies on that. Next time you can sit in the front. Thank you.
And I do want to share, there's no finish line to this. There's no, this has to be done by May. This is an incremental process where we are always going to look to improve the things that we do within our schools. We also know that to do some of the things that we want to do, to add new courses, to provide opportunities for teaming models, takes resources. And then although we would love to have everything that we would need and do the whole splash and the whole shebang right then and there, we know this is probably going to be an incremental process. And so is the whole middle school programming going to be completely different when students walk in next August? Probably not, but they'll see some things differently. They may have more choices of courses they'll take. There may be opportunities for incremental implementation of some teaming. And so over time, and then the following year, we'll continue to add and continue to add. Because for us, we'd rather get it right than do it right now. So I just wanted to stress that this is an ongoing incremental process.
Is it all right, jump in?
Yep.
That's good.
Go ahead.
I affirm this, it's no finish line, I don't have to have it all together, et cetera, et cetera. The other side of that coin is, and I've said this to you before, don't let anything hold you back from trying to address what can be the implementation of dynamic, exciting middle school environments and learning situations. It is always going to be about money. It's always going to be about facilities. It's always going to be about all of that. But if you hang with your, I call it vision statement, your initial, to truly create advanced, actively engaged, dynamic learning environments, just circle that and just keep targeting that, because that will help you with students that are struggling socially, emotionally. That will help you with students that are, excelling. I can't tell you how much in this I like. And some teachers in middle school that I've talked to have said this feels like this has been a good process. So I wanted to affirm that. And again, what do I know? When back in the day, so you get to volunteer in elementary schools, right?
Yeah.
Pretty soon, your children, they get excited because you're in there. Oh, you try that in middle school or high school.
Yeah.
That's not going to fly. But the thing that I always remember, and this is my way around the barn to get to this. In elementary school, this teacher is trying to teach this concept, and a couple of them are struggling with it. She or he can say, do you remember when we were talking in math time, or when we were focused in science? Do you remember? She or he can make those connections. And if there's anything that I'm passionate about in this educational process, and there's a lot of things, it's making these connections, helping students see that all of this learning is not individual stuff, that it can be all brought together. And so I love the cross-collaboration, the cross-content, the cross-curriculum, the teaming models. And I had never thought about that special ed, English language, well, that takes one of their electives out, and we don't give them that many electives anyway. So I really, the team up here knows I'm just blathering while they're getting their ideas together. I love some of this and pray and hope that we really keep pushing the envelope on it. I would love to see our middle schools be kind of the models and people start coming and visiting us. So I love the direction you're going. Yes, it's always, you're always not going to be able to everything you want, but just keep pushing.
Yeah. And I will tell you, over the course of this experience, equally in all 4 buildings, I think there is a hunger and a thirst to provide these dynamic learning experiences. And from the time that I've been here, I'll tell you, the group behind me, you don't want anyone other than those folks behind me who are incredibly talented, incredibly passionate about this work, and almost, when we go in all of our buildings, in all of our classrooms, and you look at the teachers back there who are representative of some of our middle schools here, who are equally excited and passionate about doing incredible work for our kids. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen here.
And one more thing. Please take back to the whole 40-ish some group and to the folks behind you, really, thank you for the work that y'all have done thus far. I'm done.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick comment. So first off, thank you so much for all of your work. It's exciting. Rick and I met with the Boy Scouts tonight, and one thing I took away from what they were saying, what they were excited about, was being actively engaged. So for that to be in this statement makes me really happy. The next thing that I am feel thankful for is that you are talking about teaming. Since I've come on board 5 years ago, I've heard from the teachers in this district all over talking about the impact they can make and how positive it is for the kids in this district. So thank you for listening.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, there isn't much that I can add to any of that, except to correct Scott a little bit. He paid me a lovely compliment about giving guidance and so forth, but I think really most of what I do is to go from committee to committee and go, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, which I'm not quite sure fits that description you gave of me. It is exciting. It's these meetings that we've been having, these extensive, involved, intense meetings with the 40-some, you know, as our teachers get the opportunity to work together, to work across grades, to work across buildings, to work across disciplines, there is so much energy that comes from that. We are, as Scott said, limited because of what happened to the middle schools in the last financial downturn for this district. But in so many ways, we aren't limited at all because we have some amazing people working in these buildings. And this team, this opportunity, and the freedom they have been given to dream and to focus their dreams in practicalities, which is what we need, that has ignited, energized, and underscored the incredible depth of professionalism and knowledge that exists within our staff. Our faculty, our administrators, our classified staff are second to none. And if you had been present in these hours and hours of meetings, you would be so deeply thankful for what has been preserved in this middle school program in spite of realities of dollars and so forth, because that gives us the foundation that's necessary to do what we are doing now. The way we're doing it is very deliberate, it's very thoughtful, it's also very hopeful, and it's very doable. So yeah, exciting, fun, And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of it.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I think the plans are very exciting. One of the things I wanted to just touch on, and I know that they're still ongoing, the planning process, but we are also working on facilities planning. So I was just wondering if there's any facility needs that you've identified in the meantime we should consider.
I think as we continue to do our work, and as we begin to, and Jen and her team begin to look at some of the exciting programming that they want to offer, and maybe some of the facilities needs as we look to some of the perhaps teaming models and things that we do, or the work from the social emotional group, I think that will be a part of the planning and the work that we do with our facilities to try to marry the two, so that not only are the students having dynamic experiences, they're having a dynamic place to have those experiences. And so we do keep that in mind.
Okay, but nothing at this point you haven't identified?
No, we're not that far.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Great work, team. Okay, moving on to agenda item 7.01, public comments pertaining to action items. I see that we do not have anyone signed up for public comment tonight. Agenda item 8.01, approve the financial report investments for 2018. Can I please have a motion and a second to consider this?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Marshall, do you have a report?
Yes, thank you, President Cotter, members of the board. This month, we're going over the October monthly financial report. For the general fund, our year-to-date receipts were $78.3 million. Year-to-date expenditures were $58.8 million. Our unencumbered fund balance was $122.7 million. For all funds, our year-to-date receipts were $141.8 million. Year-to-date expenditures were $75.2 million, and unencumbered fund balance was $187.8 million.
Any questions or comments? Okay, can you please call the roll?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Can I please have a motion and a second for agenda item 8.02, resolution to approve the purchases in accordance with ORC 5705.41D1 and Board Policy 6320?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, you have a report?
Get used to new initials, apologize for that. So we have what's commonly referred to as a then and now purchase order. So in this case, it was for a field trip for the theater department at Genoa Middle School. And it's really as simple as the event wasn't actually until October the 16th. The purchase order date was October the 4th. But for some reason, they dated the invoice September 17th, so it's just a matter of the date. We did have the appropriations in place, so the purchase order was no issue.
Any questions? Okay, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8.03. Can I please have a motion and a second for the resolution to approve the fund-to-fund transfer from the Capital Improvement Fund 003 to the Debt Service Fund 002 in the amount of $2,937,712.50, and from the General Fund 001 to the Turf Replacement Fund 003-9004 in the amount of $65,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there a report on this, or?
Yeah, so the annual transfer is for the tax anticipation note that's being, the 2.9 million is for that, that we have. We will have 2 more payments left after this payment in December. And then the turf replacement fund, that's an annual contribution from the general fund to that.
Any questions? Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda items 9.01 through 9.11. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve those?
So moved.
Second?
I see we have Dr. Hopkins here for a report.
Good evening, President Cotter, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg. I'd like to present to you for your consideration the personnel consent agenda. Some of the highlights included in the consent agenda are as follows. We have 7 retirements, and we certainly look forward to recognizing all these remarkable individuals at the end of the year. We have 13 resignations from various classified and classified sub-positions. 5 resignations from licensed positions, 3 requests for leaves of absences, 1 one-time payment to cover therapy sessions that were conducted by our psychologists, the employment of 14 individuals in various classified and classified sub-positions, and the employment of 1 teacher, and also the employment and update of individuals in a number of supplemental contract and classified pupil activity programs. I'd also like to draw to your attention, there's also an inclusion of an amendment to contract language in the WESA contract and the AAS guidelines regarding vacation time to better reflect our current practice. Happy to field any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Can you please call the roll?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 10.01, policy 2111, parent and family engagement. Something that was discussed at our last meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this? Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Moving on to agenda item 10.02, policy 2260. Can I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on this policy?
One, I want to thank Mark Hershiser and Jennifer Ferris for making the adjustments that I talked about last time.
Any other questions or comments? Can you please call the roll?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 10.03, final reading policy 2261, Title I Services. Can I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, agenda item 10.04, final reading policy 2261.01, parent and family member participation in Title I programs. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on this policy? No? Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Agenda item 10.05, final reading policy 2370.01, blended learning. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this policy? No? Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 11.01, another policy, 5517, the anti-harassment policy. Dr. Hopkins?
President Cotter, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, just some highlights for the revision for Policy 5517, anti-harassment. There's really two major parts that warranted, we think, revisions. Since this policy is under Section 5000, which is a student section, we have corrected instances where employee was used instead of the word student, so we made those corrections, and also have revised a number of parts of this section on how investigatory records are maintained to certainly comply with federal OCR recommendations.
Any questions?
There's one typo, it's fine, but on 310,
Okay?
it says authorizes authority, who is the word I think you want there. It's SHOW, what I think you want, who, WHOA.
We'll certainly
call.
make that revision. Thank you.
Are you here for our other policies too?
No, just the first one.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Appreciate that opportunity.
Moving on to agenda item 11.02, policy 5610, removal, suspension, expulsion, and permanent exclusion of students. I'm guessing that's your policy? Okay.
Hi, President Cotter, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg. Policy 5610 is revised to add language that is consistent with House Bill 318. In the description of a knife, we've added the verbiage that's from that House bill, capable of causing serious bodily injury. That has been added to this policy. This language does not change or impact how we actually do business. I'm happy to answer any questions on this policy.
Any questions?
Thank goodness. No more worries about children who have plastic knives with them.
Just one quick comment. So where it says see policy, just another policy, do we still link that on the website whenever someone goes to a policy to look at and they're referring to another policy? Is there a link, or how does that work? I forget, and I should have looked.
Neola's changed its access a little bit, so I'm not quite certain I understand exactly how it links back. It used to link very well, but I don't know that it does anymore.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, are you agenda item 11.03?
I'm happy to talk about policy 5610.02. This is revised to ensure that it is understood that the supervision of students in an alternative learning center educational environment is required, and that any student assigned to an ALC will be provided the opportunity to complete all classroom assignments. Again, we're adding the language from House Bill 318, but it is not a change to our practice. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
No, but that's an important point. It is not a change to our practice. And that's appropriate, what we've been doing. I'm glad we're putting in policy as it needs to be.
Okay, policy 5610.03.
Policy 5610.03 adds language from House Bill 318 that now prevents the suspension or expulsion of students in grades pre-K through grade 3 unless the behavior of the student falls into one of 3 different safety categories. Again, this does not really impact our process, but we are adding the language per House Bill 318.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
And those 3 categories are the ABC that we're looking at here in the policy?
Yes,
Okay.
it involves weapons, serious bodily injury, and other language that is generic in a safety type
Right.
of a concern.
Right,
Okay.
thank you.
The next agenda item 11.05? Yeah, that's what I thought, okay. 56, policy 5611, is that your policy as well?
Policy 5611 defines due process procedures for a student disciplinary case. This language revision will not result in any change to our practice, but we're just clarifying what our policy is. And again, some of this language comes from House Bill 318.
Any questions? No? Okay, are you agenda item 11.06 too?
I am doing new policy 8403, School Resource Officer. This is a new policy that also reflects language from House Bill 318. This policy defines the relationship between the district and the police department in relationship to how we work with our school resource officer. It defines the qualifications and structure and the role of the school resource officer. The district currently enjoys a very cooperative relationship with all of our law enforcement partners that serve our district. We currently work with the Westerville Division of Police and Genoa Township to provide our secondary schools with an SRO. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this policy.
Are there any questions?
Within that partnership, did you have an opportunity to go over this language with our 2 partners?
We did reach out to both of our representatives from both of those 2 police divisions. The policy language of this policy was shared. I have not received any feedback of any concerns.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My agenda is different than what's on the screen. Was 11.07 removed? Addition of computer integrated manufacturing?
Yes, I sent a
Okay.
message earlier today, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
That's fine. Okay, so then the next agenda item is 12.01. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the donation acceptance?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Just how grateful we are to people that give over and above, and then over and above that, to our schools, to our staff, to our students. And no donation is considered unimportant to us. And so we're very thankful, blessed.
Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, can I also have a motion and a second to approve our overnight out-of-state field trips?
So moved?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 12.03. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the Library Board of Trustees?
So moved.
Second.
Is anyone presenting on this, or
No, but,
we should say who it is, right?
yep. Go ahead.
I'll read that.
Yeah.
Or just his name.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Walden is going to be appointed to the Library Board. John C. Walden, we appreciate his dedication and service to the district. Can you please call the roll?
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 13.01, public comment. We do have some people signed up for public comment. Beth Morvay, would you come up to the podium, please? And remember, you have 5 minutes. Thank you for signing up.
Thank you, President Cotter, the board, and Dr. Kellogg. My name is Beth Morvay. I am an alumna of Westerville City Schools, a middle school teacher in the district, and the parent of a future Westerville Schools student. I've lived in this district for 30 years. I am deeply invested in the opportunities that we give to all of our children. 2 years ago, when my husband and I were looking to buy our first house, the only criteria we gave our real estate agent was it needs to be in Westerville City Schools. So with that said, I am deeply concerned about the newly outlined plan for the new middle school. So I absolutely agree that there should be a middle school serving students in the south end of the district, especially since transportation to school can be a decisive factor in family, community, and extracurricular involvement. However, the current plan to open a middle school while closing Blendon does not make sense for our kids. I teach in a building that was designed for 600 students, which is how many were there when I was a student, but now houses well over 900. In the 20 years since I attended, our middle schools have lost a wealth of programming that are the hallmarks of the middle school movement. And I'm so excited that our district is giving voice to that movement and to the unique needs of our middle school population, because they are different from elementary schools and from our high schoolers. And so the Association of Middle Level Education, which has deep ties to Westerville historically, notes the importance of teaming and developing relationships so we can help our pre-adolescents and adolescents become people, become citizens and members of a community. And we really used to be at the forefront of that middle school movement. I know as a student, we had implemented a lot of those suggestions. It was a whole new model. And as a student, we hated it because we couldn't get away with anything because our teachers knew everything about us and they had that team working together. And since then, we've lost a lot of what makes a middle school a middle school. And right now, it seems what we have are junior highs that aren't necessarily the most developmentally appropriate for the emotional and academic needs of our kids. Opening a new middle school and closing another one won't do anything, or at least enough, to address the significant overcrowding issues at our middle schools. Not only is safety an issue with overcrowding, many of our buildings have discussed or implemented a no backpack policy because we physically could not move in the hallways or in the classrooms with them. But also our ability to implement a curriculum and a school culture specifically geared to our population becomes impossible with that size of a school. And what's more, I do have concerns about the implementation of neighborhood schooling on the south end. I need to just get this out there. All of the children within the Westerville City School boundaries that have been in place for generations. My dad grew up in Minerva Park and attended the middle school that I attended and that I teach at. All of our children are our kids. Living near or south of I-270, as my child does not diminish a child's importance or our commitment to their education. Diverse student populations prepare our kids for the real world, and our students are fortunate to have that opportunity. Part of our district's value statement says that we recognize individuality and that every person has worth, dignity, and the right and ability to learn and contribute. It goes on to say that we believe every person should have an equal opportunity to access and participate in all educational offerings. If we take this seriously, this means that our schools are focused on equity, meaning that our students have deliberate supports in place that are necessary for their specific success. It means we don't value students in one zip code over students in another. It means valuing and supporting all of our children, including students of color, our English learners, our students with learning disabilities, our economically disadvantaged students, our homeless students, and our students who have experienced trauma. Different school populations require different resources in order to have a level playing field. These are all our children, and we have a moral and ethical obligation to make sure that we are not designating a new middle school as a neighborhood school only to appease certain segments of society. Our treatment needs to be equitable, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Paul Reed, if you'd like to come up to the podium.
Hello, Dr. Cotter, Dr. Kellogg, and board members. My name is Paul Reed. I'm here today to make you aware of a high-density zoning proposal that was approved that will impact Westerville City Schools. MI Homes are building a housing development on East Walnut Street, and it's across the street from St. Paul's Lutheran Church. The plan is 244 houses on so it's 4 houses per acre, 244 houses. The planned development would annex into city schools of Columbus, but with Westerville City Schools not getting any of the taxes. So it's not going to help Westerville City Schools at all. It's going to overcrowd, essentially. So taxes will go to Columbus schools while students reap the benefits of Westerville City Schools. Can Westerville City Schools handle this type of influx of students? Are you aware of this? When was this approved? And was there a voting process in place for this? And what schools will this new development go to? Mark Twain or McVeigh? How is this going to be handled?
There's probably one piece of information there that needs to be checked on. you made the comment that this housing development, the residents of this housing development would not pay Westerville City Schools property tax,
Correct.
but they would attend our schools?
Correct.
I think you should probably go back and check that one because I don't think that's accurate.
That's not accurate, okay. This is according to MI Homes. Their lawyers stated this during the city council meeting, which is being held tonight in downtown Columbus. The approval process is in place. This was already stated. So I think I've checked my facts.
I'll circle back with you and try and get that information, but I'm unaware of any situation where residents who own property would pay property taxes to one school district.
Right.
There'd have to be an agreement, and there's nothing in place.
Okay. Like I said, there is a meeting this evening. It's 60 acres. Let's say that it is happening.
Is this the corner of County Line, and you said across from St. Paul's?
East Walnut Street, across from St. Lutheran
Oh,
Church.
St. Lutheran, thank you.
Right, so Cubbage to East Walnut, St. Paul's Lutheran Church.
St. Paul, okay, all right.
Oh,
That's
okay.
correct.
Yeah, I know,
On the
we
east
know
side of
the
the reservoir.
On the other
Yeah.
side of
The east side of the reservoir. There's a small group of
Got it.
students. We know all of them that live over there.
Yeah, we're aware of that property on the other side. That was property that was part of Win-Win, I believe, and so the Win-Win agreement went away. Those properties pay.
Right, that's correct. The win-win
Right,
was
so-
a part of it,
So
right?
those properties have always paid Westerville school taxes.
So it was agricultural land at the time, and
Right.
now it's being transitioned over. Property was purchased by Columbus, and they said that they can move over into that property without any issues.
So the property there has always been part of the Win-Win agreement, where they pay Westerville City Schools property taxes, but it's City of Columbus income tax. So those properties will still pay Westerville City School property taxes, but they, as do other entities, pay income tax to the City of Columbus, which is not Columbus City Schools. That's the difference. So we're aware of that subdivision, and those enrollment figures are part of our enrollment figures, those projections. But the property tax issue, to be clear, they will pay Westerville City Schools property tax, just like all the other subdivisions of our school district, regardless of address, Columbus, Gahanna, Blendon Township, Minerva Park, Genoa Township, all of those entities pay Westerville City Schools property tax,
Okay.
although the City of Columbus would pay City of Columbus income tax.
Okay.
So those are two different bodies in there.
So it will assist then, is what you're saying?
We will continue to gather property tax revenue from those properties, even with the change in the property designation from what it was before to residential.
Okay.
So MI reached out to us when that was going on. It aligned at a point in which we were agreeing to end the win-win agreement with Columbus City Schools.
Right.
So we no longer, we're in the process of eliminating those payments to Columbus City Schools over the last 5 years, but we retain the property tax that we've always gotten from those properties.
So with regards to that, then, the students then, there is going to be a large amount of students that were going to be coming in there.
Correct.
That is you guys are preparing for that then?
Yep, so we have those numbers in all of our projections, and we'll look at that in alignment. So you hit on some of the high enrollment schools, and that, again, kind of feeds into some of the discussion of facilities master planning
Right.
that we've been doing.
Right.
So, so yes, we have the numbers.
Okay.
They're part of our planning. We're aware of there's actually two different plots over there, I think, that MI bought
Right.
as part of it. And that's how the tax portion of it works. I hope that was clear. And the planning part's on our side, yeah.
So I have 5 children in the school district here, and some of them haven't came up to this age yet, where they're at school quite yet. But this is a concern. Do we know what schools are going to be? Is it still going to be ELC right here and then Mark Twain? Will that change?
We haven't changed any boundaries to that subdivision at this point. What we've done is looked at enrollment projections across elementary, middle, and high school, and we continue to use that for a planning document. We don't have specific enrollment projections by school. That's a number that's harder to get.
Okay.
So we continue to look at our elementary and middle school in particular enrollment, and again, that's part of the driver behind the facilities master plan discussion to look at that piece. So depending on where we moved on that, also have to look at enrollment boundaries moving forward. So We have it in place.
Right.
Haven't made any changes to boundaries at this point. Want to do as little of that as possible, but as we need to, we will.
It's, what we're trying to do is we're not trying to stop the development of it. It's going to happen. We're trying to stop the density. It's kind of ridiculous. That area right there, where we live, there's 180 residents. And we're trying to double that with literally a quarter of the size of acreage. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm just a school superintendent, and I'll take care of the schools. The rest of it I'll leave to the other people.
Right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 14.01. Are there any board comments?
Just real quickly, never heard that from me before, have you? Welcome, Dr. Bell. Mr. Bell, Pastor Bell, we're excited to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of this team. We're excited to hear your contributions and your voice represented. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All those students are our students. That is a collective agreement that you have up at this table. Second, I will not speak for the board. I have not made any decision about what will be built, what will be shifted. Those are all ideas and concepts that we are pushing out into the community for response. So we appreciate that quite a bit. And the confusion of southern end of the district and win-win and taxes is an ongoing thing that we work with, which is good. I'd rather somebody share and say, not sure how that works. But really appreciate both of you speaking so that your voice is very clear. And I will not speak, but I am determined that from my perspective, we will continue to push for a district that is welcomingly diverse and one that tries to model for other parts of society what you can do when you ignore zip code advantages. So I, again, am grateful for both of your voices. I'm excited for this middle school design. Pray, hope that it brings some clarity to what we can do, not only curricularly, but structurally and in facilities. And I have not made a decision on that. Thank you.
Dr. Nestor Baker, do you have any comments?
Speaking very quickly. Vaughn, I'm very glad you're here. As I told you, I have wanted to work with you for some time, and I'm glad it's in this capacity. I'm delighted to welcome you to the board. The problem with letting Rick go first is all I can do then is say ditto. It's so unfair. No, what Rick said is very much in tune with my thinking as well. I haven't made any decision as regards facilities. I am waiting to hear what is said, waiting on the input, waiting on all the information still to come. Those are components that are out there for comment, and I thank you for your comments very much. I fully know what it was like to grow up in Minerva Park like your dad did, since he was right down the street from me. The middle school design team will continue its work, and it will continue to be exciting, and it will continue to be something that we will be very proud of when it is completed, even when it's partially complete. There are many good things happening. The building of homes is always something that we keep in mind, the number of students that will be coming in, where they're going to school, what that does to the numbers in those schools. We worry about those things, we track those things, we try to make plans for those as best we can. The density of housing is not something that rests with us as regards decision-making. The approval of those agreements, as the speaker mentioned, rest with the city of Columbus as regards the plots that he's talking about this evening. We will do what is necessary to care for and educate the students who come to us, wherever their houses may be. Because, as Rick said, they all matter, every single one, whichever zip code, whichever house, whichever apartment, whatever street, they're ours, and they matter.
Try to be quick.
Okay. And I think you need to leave early, right?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So first off, I want to say thank you to all the people that applied for the open board seat. It was wonderful to see that other people want to serve the community, and we appreciated that. And Vaughn, we are so super excited that you are joining our team. Anything we can do to help you, please ask. You become a family up here. It's all good. Secondly, a couple questions, couple statements. Head Start numbers, I know we talk about those. Scott shared that there are 80 kids there, 52 of them are Westerville kids, reside here in Westerville. Correct, Scott?
Scott, did we get clarification if that was Westerville City residents or Westerville City School residents?
Okay. Still, it's a good starting number for us. Yep,
How many out of 80?
52.
Thank you.
52 out of 80 were reported as City of Westerville residents. We're not sure if they meant school district, so the number may actually be higher than
Oh, yeah.
50 out of 80.
Yeah, great.
So,
Thank
but
you.
just something for us to know.
Good, yeah.
Also, if we could add links to the policy when it refers to another policy, just to make it a little bit easier for the public, I think I would appreciate that. Before our next board meeting, which is a work session, I would like to have an executive session so we can talk about property by Emerson. So that's the next thing. Also, Jill Beck fabulously taking notes at all of our community facilities meeting. If you would please send those out to all the board members, I would appreciate it. And then lastly, I would just like to let my colleagues know that I would like to be board president next year in 2018. So I'm going to be asking for your support in January. And that's it.
Thank you. Do you have any comments?
Just a few. First of all, I wanted to thank all of you, the members of the board, for allowing me this privilege and opportunity to continue to serve our community in this way. You've been so gracious in helping me get up to speed and get going. So I certainly want to thank all of you. Dr. Kellogg, thank you so much. And Nicole, thank you for all the help and assistance that you're giving me. I also want to acknowledge and thank, they scooted out, but thank my two daughters who I brought here under duress earlier this evening so they could see me sworn in. So I want to thank them for their understanding with what will happen with some of my time from this point going forward. And I also just wanted to thank my predecessor in his absence, as he is in the Rocky Mountain State. So I want to thank Richard Byrd for all of his hard work and sacrifice that he brought to this community. So thank you all very much.
Okay. Well, I think that we're all thankful, which is appropriate, given Thanksgiving coming up. I'm thankful for our new board member. Welcome again. And also, I think that was a really good point. Richard Byrd did an excellent job as a board member, and he'll be missed. And I'm also very thankful for our students, our staff, our teachers, everyone that does everything they can each day to, provide the best services we can to our community. And I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. So, okay, moving on to agenda item 15.01, The board will meet on Monday, December 3rd, 2018, for a work session, and in regular session on December 10th, 2018, at 6 PM here at the Early Learning Center. And at this time, I would entertain a motion and second for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Can you please call the roll, Ms. Marshall?
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker? Oh, sorry. Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes. Thank you all for coming this evening.